Hey, everybody, I'm Trevor.
And I'm Tom.
This is Agency Real Talk, where we talk about your agency and how to scale it,
For real.
because it's real talk, you see. If you have an agency that's doing less than $1 million a year, good news. We're in the trenches growing our businesses up through that size, too.
So listen in if you want to learn more about what we're doing and what we've done to make our businesses more efficient and profitable as we grow.
We grow. And as you can tell from the show liner, today we're talking about positioning and how to stand out in an unsubtle world.
There's a lot to
So
say on this topic,
there
Trevor.
is.
I'm happy we got something back into the weeds here.
Yeah, it's been a
Specifically, the
while.
ways to differentiate the agency in a everyone's their own agency type of world. I think it's kind of difficult. So I see here we got 5 top tips for
Top tips.
differentiating your agency. What do you want to start with?
Um, so I see a lot of people. I'm a member of a couple different like /r/agencies on Reddit. I'm part of Furlough on Discord, like a bunch of places. And one of the things people almost inevitably do, I see, is they go, "I'm a 19-year-old. I'm just out of high school. I'm launching a full service agency. Let's go." And for whom? What service? Any of these things? No, right? And the very first thing you can do to differentiate is to pick a service, a client type, an industry, a thing, and say, this is my niche, and usually because of a reason. And then have that be what makes you different and special. Can you think of some examples of this, Tom?
Well, I think the term that we're sort of circling around is called specialization,
Hmm.
right? When you're talking about a specific skill or a specific industry that you really want to go after. I mean, there's a bunch. I've seen marketing agencies that focus exclusively on the trades, right? Or on warehouse companies or on manufacturing companies or plumbers, electricians. You can see it in like sporting contexts, right? There's a lot of people that focus just on one sport as opposed to just everything. It's these specializations that uh, really restrict what your potential market is, but also clarify your message to them, right? You can't speak to everybody all the time. You have to actually speak to a specific subset of the people that you could potentially help. And having that clarity of the message in saying, hey, look, I do this thing for, organizations like yours really help the customer just realize that you're sort of in their ethos, in their sphere. You speak the same language, you understand the industry terms that are unique to their company, their industry, their whatever their niche is. But that's when it comes down to specialization, you can't just do everything for everybody, and a single person cannot be a full service X. There is
Right.
that little nuance of saying, well, maybe you just do this one piece, but you're really good at that one piece. And a lot of times, as you're new or rookie agency owners think that, oh well, it's a bad thing that I only do this one thing, right? People want the full service, but a lot of times, somebody who does everything can't quite get as deep or as high of quality on that one particular thing that you might be really good at.
Yeah, it also massively increases sales cycle time. I've got
Mm.
a lead I'm working with right now who brought me on board. They wanted me to just fix, they call it the top of funnel, of course, because I'm a special princess, and we'll get to innovative methodology in a moment. I call it the bottom of the pyramid. But either way, the beginning to the buyer journey. They wanted me to just fix that. And I went, okay, yeah, but your conversion rate at this stage on your landing page is 1/10 of 1%. And yeah, okay,
Not great.
I can work on the ads bit, but this is where you're losing all your money. And they went, okay, how do we solve that? And I went, this is now suddenly a much more complex sale, right?
Mm.
And so I've been talking to this company since February, and we're not yet closed. They don't feel a sense of urgency, I guess. Tough for them. But normally, if I get a client who's interested, we close in like 2 weeks. So that change is because suddenly I went from I'm in this niche, they understood and they talked to me about, oh, we know you do this. We want to buy this from you. And I said, what if you were to buy all of these things from me? And they went, wait a minute. this requires thought and approval and all these other
Hmm.
things. So specialization helps you find the right people. It also helps you close deals much faster because when someone goes, I need this widget, and you say, I make these widgets, and they go, excellent, then we're just haggling over price,
Hmm.
right? It's like, I need this widget, and you said, I have a Swiss Army knife that includes that widget and everything else. And they go, but I don't want all the other things.
Yeah.
Now the question is, will you do a good bit for my little widget? Who knows? All this, like, it gets harder.
It's
So
way hard. It's a way harder sale because it's not
yeah,
only, well, I don't want the other things, but maybe the other things are actually threatening, right?
yeah,
Maybe the other things are like, well, I do some of those things and I'm the decision
mm,
maker buying this one widget and I just want this widget. Don't give me the Swiss
yeah,
Army knife because that might come after my position or something
yeah,
that someone on my team already does very, very well and it just devalues the rest of the service. So
yeah.
in that clarity of saying, this is what we do, this is the one widget that we make, condition that we can service, it really helps clarify and speed up that conversation. Absolutely, I've seen that across the board with my own agency and of course friends agencies. It's just that specialization piece really helps clarify and accelerate the buying process.
And that specialization can also look like jumping into a new arena, a new type of thing that didn't used to be a service. Just as an example, if 4 years ago someone started a no code automation agency, that was a burgeoning field back then. Who would think it would grow to the size it was now? I'd argue some people who were savvy may have thought the field would grow to the size it is now. But at the time, if you're like, I do no code automation, as you did a million years ago when you launched X-Ray, 4 years ago, uh, that was new, right? You specialized in that, and folks went, "Oh, interesting."
You're telling me my I can value my time more than copying and pasting? You can
Yeah,
solve
what?
that type of problem?
What? No.
Bizarre, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
That specialization definitely helped, and especially when you talk about the ripple effects that creates when you do content or thought leadership, or like the SEO juice that is going to feed your way, for talking about things that might not be as popular or as highly competitive as more older, mature topics. That specialization can really shine.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I think this actually also dovetails into because when you launched X-Ray, you weren't like, "Hey, we build Zapier stuff for you." You
No,
went,
no, that was yeah. So I think that's like the safe place to go
yeah,
in the no code automation, workflow design, as we call it, uh industry. It's, oh, we use these tools to do this
yeah,
thing. We flipped it a little bit to say we actually orient our entire service around the person and say, what is the work that we want to design the human to do? And that's a very different question compared to like, well, can I get this data in this other place? Right?
yeah,
It's like, how do I design the way that people work? And that's why we call it workflow design. But that
yeah.
does hit a little bit of specialization, and I think a little bit in the second camp, which is
Yes,
innovative methodology, right?
yes,
And this is the topic that we really were precise about when we started the company, to say we don't just automate with X tool. That is sort of the antithesis of what we're trying to do. We're really trying to say human time is the most valuable time, and we want to design what people do because it's not necessarily in their expertise or in their comfort zone or whatever to design the system that they operate within, right? A marketing expert, a design expert, a legal expert is good at their craft. They're not necessarily building the system that is, enabling their craft. And that's where we really were precise about saying, no, we orient around the human, not the tool. And that has been just a tremendously effective conversation because it opens the door in a lot of different contexts to just like honest, transparent communication about like, yeah, this thing, these people are really great, but we're working in a broken system, and it sort of alleviates the stress of blame because it's not about the person. It's about, the system that we're operating in isn't enabling the person to flourish. And it creates this thing that we can all point at and say, let's improve that, as opposed to saying, well, this tool, if this tool could just do one more thing, then all our problems would go away. Well, hire an automation shop to do that, right? If that's your
Yeah.
perspective, go for it. The selection process to say you are not my client is just as valuable as saying you are
Yes.
my client. So that's where we ended up implementing this like innovative methodology around
Yeah.
humans first, tools second, and that's been really effective for us.
And in many ways, X-ray is your second agency, and you're doing things at the start of X-ray that were smarter than I think you did at the start of your previous agency. And it's my
Night
first
and day.
agency, so I'm making like I didn't launch with an innovative methodology. I built one,
Mm-hmm.
and it is now instrumental in how I sell and deliver for all of my clients. But the way I launched my agency was, which was pretty stupid, was I was a freelancer who I went, if I just hire more people, I'll get more money. And
Mm.
spoiler alert, that does not work. Uh, but after
Never.
hiring a team and then having literally 100% of my clients churn in 45 days, and then being like, well, now I've got payroll to meet and no income, I then kind of blindly stumbled into systematizing what I was already doing and then had something innovative. And like now I can communicate it after 3 years of working on the message. The last sales call I did yesterday, at the end of it, the guy was like, this could be a stand up routine. It was both educational and really funny. And now I understand what working with you is like.
I thought
Okay,
this whole podcast was a stand-up routine.
we're working there. We're
We'll
working
get
there.
there. We'll get there. But the thing that really amazed me, Trevor, in really the last year was you adopted this other thing
Mm-hmm.
called the results driven approach, right? Which is
Yeah.
not something that I can do.
Yeah.
Right. In the automation world, the conversation about ROI and the conversation about how much is this really worth? And, do you charge per run of the automation or how effective it is? How do you
Yeah.
measure the time that was saved when you're not measuring the time that it takes beforehand? Right.
Yes.
There's really not a good way of doing result driven approach for my agency here.
Yeah.
But what about you? How are you able to use that approach?
Yeah. And so results driven was that plus innovative methodology is, I'd argue, what makes crowd tamers differentiated. My specialization is just like businesses, right? There's no
Yeah.
specialization there.
Not much specialization there.
And
Yeah.
I'd even argue, and I say this with, if my clients are listening, my client experience is mediocre at best, right? I'm interested in problems and not people. I, and some of my new employees are much more people, and will probably fix some of this. But I'm always like, let me solve the problem. You person, shut up. So what makes me distinct and different is the methodology and the results-driven approach. We're the only agency I know of that says, for a brand new business, I guarantee you we'll make you an engine that makes you money. And you go, how can you do that? Well, I built 78 of them now in the last 3 years and change. And I've yet to fail to do it. That's the big one.
Mm.
If I have a 100% hit rate and a guarantee that I'll do it, I'm pretty comfortable offering the guarantee, right? Now, I did just have somebody this week say, hey, so this 90-day thing you do, I need it in 30 days. Can you still guarantee the results? And I went, no. Like, well, I can compress the work to that much time, but by losing my opportunities to learn
Mm.
along the way, like I get you have a time crunch and I can deliver the work at insane speed now. My team has learned how to pick up the pace a lot.
Yeah, yeah.
But can I promise you it's going to hit all the core metrics? No, right? If you want to go that fast, you're accepting a chance of a
A risk.
suboptimal solution.
Yeah, yeah.
But in general, I'm offering a guarantee where if you follow this procedure the way I say it needs to be done, I know I'll reach that result. And that really does. A lot of people just go, well, I'd be an idiot not to take you up on the offer, wouldn't? And I'm like, yes, you would be. So please sign here on the dotted line and give me your money.
Well, but it eliminates the risk, right, for
It does.
them, and it makes aligned incentives. And that's one of the ways that you can differentiate as an agency is you intentionally understand and align incentives. And in your case, a result driven approach makes it abundantly clear that everyone's incentives are aligned.
Yep.
You will be successful because if you're not, your client's not going to pay you. So
Exactly.
it's a very straightforward equation if someone is making that purchase decision. And you've spoken a lot about not so much the result driven approach, but the innovative methodology. I think this
Yeah.
goes a little bit hand in hand with thought leadership, right? If
Yeah.
you are specializing or have a unique methodology, it doesn't do you very much good if you don't talk about it. And you don't tell
Yeah.
anybody about it. And that's where the thought leadership piece really comes in and starts to shine. Is can you get traction on Google or a LinkedIn post or something like that that like is the social proof, is the proof that you need to say, hey, I am an expert in this particular discipline, and because I've done XYZ 78 times, right? You should trust this approach. What has been your experience with thought leadership so far on these topics?
So I inadvertently ran an experiment last month, and like all
The
good
best kind.
experiments, I didn't know I was doing it. That's how science always works, right? Um, I worked with an agency to manage and post my social media stuff for me, and the results weren't there. And so they went, we need to make a few changes, and then everything ground to a halt. And so in June we posted basically zero videos, and so my organic reach, I still had some stuff scheduled. I use a tool called Missing Letter, and whenever I make a blog post, it creates an evergreen 12-month cycle of just post about the blog post forever.
Wow.
And so it was posting my blog posts like twice a week, but my daily video posts were gone. My
Mm,
organic reach dropped about 70% in the month of June.
ouch.
My lead volume dropped 70% in the month of June, despite the fact that in like nowhere, when I look at lead source, is organic listed as my number one lead source, because organic is not, my reach is only about maybe 20,000 people a month, like across
Mm,
all my channels combined. The first touch is hardly ever organic for me, organic SEO or organic social.
yeah.
But what ends up happening is you go check me out, you see my profile. And once you see my profile, if I'm posting every day, you're going to see my content just keep bumping you for like 4 or 5 days. And if you don't engage with it, then eventually you'll stop seeing it. But that daily bump was driving people to reach out. And
Mm,
so it's thought leadership. I'm interviewing people like you, people like any of the experts I have on launch today, other podcasts I'm working on building up. It's the same thing. It is, I'm able to speak cogently about go to market, launch, early startup, and scale. And when people hear that, they go, oh, Trevor seems to care about this. I'll have a chat with him. And whatever your agency is, you who's listening, right, your opportunity to do the same and speak about what you are passionate about and what you know about won't necessarily be the start of journeys for people, but it will be what gets them to actually reach out and begin a conversation. And that very, like, it's almost a perfect linear map of organic social reach to lead volume. That if you'd asked me at the end of May, are these two correlated? And I've been like loosely, right? Like I'm sure there's some connection, but it's not very tight. And I'm like, no, it's practically like a causation effect. It's very tight, like zero point
mhm.
0.9, right? Correlation, insanely high.
Wow.
So like, okay, that's a good one to know. Uh, and that's further specialization and further innovation, right? As you talk about what you're doing that makes you unique and for whom you do it, you are pushing the other messages out. And how about you, Tom? You've got, I mean, way more reach than I do on social media. You do the YouTube game a lot better than I do. How are you finding it?
Well, I'd say the thought leadership comes in a couple different forms for us. So one is to say we have a firm stance that automation and or AI are just another tool to design the way that people spend their day.
Hmm.
And we firmly, push the topic of workflow design as opposed to any trendy technology or app or whatever that is going to be yet another component in designing someone's day. So that is like a stance that we as a company stand in and put in a lot of our content. But like that level of thought leadership isn't um, isn't as applicable to a lot of industries, right? If you're a design agency or you're something that has been around for more than 5 years, right?
Right.
In a discipline that's been around for more than 5 years. It doesn't necessarily, thought leadership doesn't necessarily need to be this like new topic that you're teaching everyone. It could very simply be like the right way versus the wrong way of structuring a file, of handling this one really specific component of your overall skill set, whatever it is. It's really having a preference and sharing that preference in that way of doing things that you believe would be a gold standard or a best practice, and having that to point to and consistently producing content that reinforces these messages and these styles of working, or whatever is really core to your agency and your expertise. Like, that's the valuable part, and that is under the umbrella of thought leadership. It doesn't need to be, hey, everyone, you're using AI wrong, we need to do it this way.
Right.
It's a lot more like, here's your skill set, and thought leadership is being opinionated about certain components that contribute to your skill set. And I think that is a much more scalable piece of advice for industries that could be old and could be dusty and could be, something that you're just learning right now, that you can still produce material that communicates your thoughts in a leadership fashion.
Yeah.
So, it's a very flexible vertical of, ways to differentiate your own agency. But think about those types of things that are not as grandiose, but still opinionated. And I think that will guide you to topics that you're just comfortable in and you have opinions on. And really the authenticity piece comes out in thought leadership. And when you're differentiating your agency, authenticity is very often, whether it's disclosed or not, part of the buying decision.
Big part of it. You buy from people. One, you tend to buy from people who look and sound like you, right? So, I mean, on the bright side for me, I guess, startup founder world, largely straight white male. There you go, right? Like people go, oh, he looks like me. That's not fair, but it is true. Uh, there are also times when I've worked with people who don't look like me, but they go, I need somebody of that mindset because I'm not that mindset and I need to be able to market to that, right? But then whoever you are, whatever your authentic person is, there will be people who are founders in that space
Mm-hmm.
and buyers in that space who will resonate with you because of who you are. So getting out in front of people and not having, I mean, another podcast of two white dudes talking with their heads on camera all the time, right? Like having something else out there and thought leadership out there for folks who want just this would also be uh, valuable just because new perspectives are also good for thought leadership.
So the last piece of differentiation advice comes from really having your stuff together to be able to create an exceptional client experience. So we talked in previous podcasts about, your clients and saying goodbye and being able to really like have that type of relationship that transcends 1 or 10 projects. But giving a client an exceptional experience working with you can be as simple as communicating your thoughts actively, right? As simple as like, here's your two options, A or B. This is what I think, but it's your decision, right? It can be that simple so far, or as extensive as, the client is able to rant and rave about whatever it is that you did and the ripple effects that it had on their business, whether that was intentional or not. And that exceptional client experience is much harder to craft, and you sort of see it referenced in like, I don't know why I have this idea, but like in hospitality, like
Yeah.
you have really glaring examples of like the concierge, right? Finding the one dress for, somebody, or the one thing that like, got reservations at the restaurant that was booked out for 4 months. Like the exceptional experience in concierge and in hospitality tends to be like the example that you can pull from. But in your agency or in your context, that exceptional client experience directly translates to referrals and business, right?
Mm.
Like it's a one-to-one. If you're able to really evangelize whatever it is you're doing to give that client that great of experience where they are not only going to admit it to themselves that they had a great experience, but share it forward with other people, then your agency's in a pretty good spot. But differentiating their experience with you would be trying to break the mold in terms of communication or expectations wherever they are with that to deliver your own best work in an exceptional way.
The only thing I think I'm good at for client experience, I've mentioned I'm not a terribly good client service person. Uh, my strength lies in finding the actual problem that needs solving,
Mm-hmm.
right? People come to you and they say, I need this. Classic example, talking to a lead last week. And they're like, we just need more traffic and then everything will be fine. And if you're in the marketing space, whenever a lead says that, one, they're already wrong. So, yes. But finding the right way to then communicate that and being like, okay, I hear you. And I actually said to them, look, I've taught 6,000 startups through Founders Institute. I've mentored one on one about 800 of them. Every time any of them have said that, that has not actually been their need. So let me ask you a few questions to probe a little more deeply. And through the discussion, they're like, hey, yeah, so our return on ad spend is effectively 0%.
ROAS.
Yeah. And so in the marketing space, right, if that means I spend $1, I make zero. And I'm like, so you don't need more traffic. That's a different way to lose more money. You have to solve why you don't make money, and then you bring more traffic in. And they were like, oh, you're right. Now, that's a tiny example of like, I'm a grumpy old marketer. So when someone says something as ludicrous as, we'll make it up in volume, right? Or any of these things, like, okay, let's probe and see what's going on. Then we'll solve the real problem. That's a really valuable thing, right? That is a exceptional client experience where if we said, hey, you wanted this solved, but the real problem was that, and we solved it, now you're going to be happy with us. The clients I have who are happiest with me and who give me case studies and referrals are the ones who said, I need this. And I went, you need this. And then when I gave it, it fixed their problems, right? So that's
Mm-hmm.
like, you don't have to necessarily be, be our guest, put our service to the test, like in Beauty and the Beast. If there's some other way you can impress a client beyond just the excellence of communication and delivery and all those other things. So, okay. Um, I think something else to think about, another lens to look at this with. If you've gone to business school or marketing school, or you're freshly out of school, right, which a lot of people who are beginning their agency journey are, you're taught the 5 P's. Sometimes it's the 7 P's, although I'll be honest, when they say seven, I don't know what the last two are. So the 7 P's are the 5 P's plus two more that I don't know. Okay. Pizza should be one of them. But the 5 P's of product marketing, uh, we just did this time. Can you remember them? Can we run through them?
Yeah, we got product, price, place, promotion, and people, all of which I don't particularly. The 4 P's of marketing I kind of put on the side personally. It's not a thing that takes up a whole bunch of mind share for me, but
You have
I think
a mature
yeah,
business. That's why, right? When
yeah.
you are beginning, right, we're looking for specialization. If you break specialization down, you get these, right?
Hmm.
And so that is an agency only really scaled when it has a repeatable thing it can do, a
Hmm.
product. Right? You have to productize some part of your service. And when you productize that is when you're able to say, hey, me, the founder, or us, the co founders, have a routine system that we can then teach someone else in the company, and then they can do it and scale. I have a new marketing strategist in my company. She's quite intelligent. She is somebody who needs a little more prep work than I do to feel comfortable when doing things like reporting. I
Yeah.
take a client call, and we, for whatever reason, we didn't have all the reporting ready for the client on the call. And so I just opened up their ads dashboard and talked through everything for them and live discussed what happened, what needed to be changed, all of these things. And at the end, she's like, off the call, she's like, how did you do that? That was all improv? And I'm like, yeah, I've been doing this for 15 years. It's easy for me to uh, go through all that. That's not a product yet, right? I can't teach somebody how to look at an ad dashboard and say, this is what the results mean and here's what to do next. I can teach somebody, look at the numbers, analyze them, do these transformations, And then after an hour or two of work, you have some conclusions. And
Mm-hmm.
so that reporting out, and particularly, I'm in the performance marketing space, right?
Yeah.
Saying what the results mean. Because when you hire an expert, like if you go to a doctor and he gave you an echocardiogram of your heart and said, looks bad, dude. And you go, what's wrong? And he goes, man,
I don't know. Look at it.
yeah, look at it. Like the numbers, they're
See,
just
see the
not.
data. See the
Look
data.
at that, and there, it's all messed up, dude. Like that's not what you want the doctor to do, right? You want the doctor to say, here's what's wrong, here's how we're going to fix it, here's the timeline for when the fix should work, come back and talk to me in 2 weeks, right? Like that's what you want, and your agency needs to be the same, because people hire you because something's wrong, and then it's your job to interpret what's wrong, what the fix is, how to and make it digestible. And I recently got the good fortune of a lead of mine gave me a bunch of reporting decks from 3 of my competitors who they'd previously hired, and getting to see how all of those companies did it, and go like, wow, actually we do a really good job of analyzing the data and synthesizing into the answers. So our reporting slide deck is 5 slides, and all of my competition, at least the big ones who I know of, like a 25 slide deck. I'm like, that's exhausting. I would go to sleep during these presentations, and I care about these numbers.
Yeah, but slides equals quality, doesn't it?
I guess for some people.
It's the one thing I want to say about product here is yes, you're in a services industry running an agency. Product is referring to the productization of
Yes.
your service.
Yes.
So chances are you're running a tech enabled service. So if you're a designer, right, your tech enablement would, as in the most simple form, be Adobe Illustrator or Figma or whatever your tools are, right? It's a
Like
tech
Adobe
enablement.
Illustrator. How
Yeah.
old are you, Tom? No, it's fine.
Hey, I opened it up today. Thank you very much. But the
Wow.
the product is the entirety of your service with tech injected into it, whether it's project management or some AI analysis or some design or whatever it is, doesn't matter. The point is that when someone buys a thing, they are buying the entirety of that service and product in one object. And your job as a agency, runner, an agency owner, is to get as close to that productization, that single thing that people buy, through tech or otherwise as possible, and then to give that to your team. Right? You want to get out of the way. Like if you're running an agency, you are in the way, actively in the way. Your job is to figure out the right way to do it, figure out how to productize it, give it to someone else on your team, and move on to other problems. There are 1,000
Yes.
other things that you can do, but your first thing is productize your service, give it to somebody else, and get out of the way.
Yes. And I think that brings us actually into pricing, because you, as the founder, your time is expensive. Ideally, when you're hiring people, some of them will be expensive. They are your management, your leadership, your co founder, or your C suite. And some of them will be less expensive. That's usually your individual contributor. The more you can do to take the big complicated bits and break them down to stuff that the individual contributor can do, that you are time shifting and cost shifting down to less expensive labor, but then you still bill it as if you were doing it because you built this engine. You productize this. And so that's where price arbitrage begins to show up. Is you can say, look, if you were to hire your own CMO, they're 400K a year now. But you work with us, it's way less than that, because we're taking the CMO's senior thinking, it's productized, and now you're going to hire us for less. Or, hey, you want to have all this work done. If you were doing it the traditional way by hand, it's 4 people's worth of work. You bring Tom and X-ray in,
Mm-hmm.
and we automate it away. And now there's price arbitrage to be made where you're going to charge more than just the API calls,
Yeah.
right? You're charging more than that, but you're charging way less than having 4 full-time employees.
Yeah.
There you go, right? You don't want to make your price the lowest you can make it, We've talked about this before on
Yes, we
these
have.
shows.
Do
There's
not do
always
that.
someone cheaper. There's always someone cheaper. You want the price to be the highest you can charge
Yes. You want people to
for
say no.
people to say no. You want at least a third of your leads, if not more, to go,
Yeah.
that's too expensive.
Please do that for yourself, right? You will never win the game of race to the bottom. Never, ever.
And when somebody is the type who's like, hey, can you discount things 5%? That's a warning. This client is going to be a trouble client. Go back and watch your episode about trouble clients, right? The ones who nickel and dime you, you're not about that life. Get out.
You just don't need it. You just don't need it. Oh, you're gonna make my blood pressure go up talking about prices and stuff like that. Like you because you really hurt yourself, and then you hurt everyone else in your industry trying to do the same thing, because you're the person doing it for $50, $1,000, whatever the cheapest thing is, and your incentives are not aligned, right? Your incentives and the client's incentives are directly going against each other if the main driver for the purchase decision is based on price. It's just not a good place to be in.
Yeah.
So let's keep going through these quick, because again, not my favorite topic, but place, promotion, and people. We got three left.
We got three
I
to go
just
through.
think it's a bunch of jargon sometimes, but like it's helpful if you
formative.
haven't. Yeah,
in your day to day, like I don't think about where my place is anymore, right? Your place is where does your audience hang out?
Yeah.
For almost every agency owner, LinkedIn's not a bad place to be. YouTube's not a bad place to be. TikTok's not a bad place to be.
No.
Depending on where you are, other spaces can be really good too, right? Maybe it's Pinterest, maybe it's Threads. I don't know. Could be anywhere.
Maybe it's your local library. Maybe
humans,
it's your like physical place. Maybe
meet other humans in the real world, like a caveman. Tom, I'll break out in hives.
I went to a diner the other day, and they had one of those like paper mats with like ads on it.
Yeah.
And I said to myself, I need to buy an ad on this, because I don't know if my kids will ever be able to do that one day, and I just want to be able to say that I did it. But it's a paper placemat. Like, I don't know what those ads are, but for people in the geography that you're in, some places have an enormous amount of pride around where they are and supporting local businesses. You could be that business. I know somebody who in Connecticut was just charging. They wouldn't charge to build or design a website. It was $500 a month for the year, and they would set it up, make the tweaks, do it, and they sign annually. Well, you get a handful of local businesses paying $500 a month. That person's doing pretty good in terms of a side hustle, right? That's not a bad, way to do it, because you show up in person, you have the chemistry. There's a lot of value in the physicality, right? But that's place, right? The market focus, where you're going to find those people.
But I would note, if you can make geography a moat, it can become a 100% unbreachable moat, because most people, like, your biggest competition on price is remote. So if you've got a physical moat where you're servicing everybody in the greater Dallas-Fort Worth area, right? All the kids in Kenya who want to run an agency for $5 an hour cannot compete with you. That'll work really well.
I can't tell you. Good.
That was just, as you talk about the placemats, the way you promotion, that's our fourth P, can really tie into your place as well.
I can't tell you how much business we've won because we could show up in person, right? Not even permanently, right? It doesn't have to be like relocate, but to be willing to show up,
to go spend a week or something.
Yeah.
Wow, interesting. I mean, if someone said, "Hey, I'll pay you $100,000 a year if you flew out to visit me for a week," I'd have to think about it.
You
just
would,
because I'm like people.
Yeah,
that's me, right? Maybe, but
you'd consider it.
But also, maybe not.
Maybe if they had free lunch.
At $100K a year, I'll pay my own lunch. Thank you very much. It's more just I got to get to an airplane, and then I don't get to work from my murder shed, and I don't know, man. Look, it's my murder shit. I'm comfortable here. Uh,
The encyclopedias and all.
my encyclopedias and all. So then I think the way you promote, right? The place and the promotion, they tie together. If you're on LinkedIn, right? Buy LinkedIn ads, maybe. Make a LinkedIn ad engine. If you're putting ads in diners in New Haven, Connecticut, awesome, right? That's your thing. And then the way you promote is there.
Mm-hmm.
And because those two are so closely tied, you really can't set one without the other. But then the last thing is the people, and there's both sides to the people. One side of people is your audience, and the
Yeah.
other side of people is your team.
Yeah.
And both end up being differentiatable. When you get all these together, you can then find your specialization, which is the first part of specialization, innovative methodology, results-driven approach, thought leadership, and exceptional client. I'm missing one, exceptional client experience. So that's the whole, like, figure it out, right? But then you get on a call with somebody, you've done the song and dance, you've got a slide deck, you've walked through it, there's a presentation, and they go, I'm talking to 3 other agencies. Why you?
Why me?
What do you do, dude?
Oh man. Well, I'll wear a couple different hats for this. So, in the early days, right back in my last agency, the why you question came up often because I was pretty young and inexperienced, right?
Hmm.
And the honest answer was, and I actually said this at different times to potential clients, I'm going to figure this out. And I'm going to figure it out before X date, right? We need to do it. And that kind of radical direct honesty of like, I don't know the answer right now, but I know that I can figure it out and I know that I can get this done for you by this time, is the type of like mano a mano, relationship that you need with a new client if you don't have the leverage of, a whole bunch of case studies to throw at,
Hmm.
right? If you don't have proof in the pudding for why you are the person to do the thing, the only other card you have to play is that you're going to figure it out and that you're going to be able to do it and that you have, they have your word. What more do you have to give?
You're not throwing away your shot.
Right.
I get it.
That's the only card you can play. But now, right, we have case studies, we have a whole bunch of material, and we've seen insides of multi-billion-dollar companies in the dog and pony show that happens inside of operations, and like I'm very confident and comfortable being pretty direct with like, we know what we do, we know what we can do. If you doubt that, look at these things. If you still doubt that, I don't really want you as a customer, right? Like that's generally the conversation now. When we get the why you question, we'll point to the proof, and if that's not enough, or there's more proof that needs to happen, or what have you, don't be afraid to walk away. Because that is a signal that maybe that is going to be a squeakier wheel than you want to have on your wagon.
So I get this sometimes. Hey, can I talk to some of your clients? What do you say when someone asks you that?
We actually have a pool of clients that have pre-approved getting introduced to potential clients.
Wow.
So we actually like did that like with the case study. So when we go through and get a case study approved, we're like, hey, would you be willing to maybe once a quarter have like a half-hour conversation with a potential lead? And most often they are very willing to do that. And I've found actually that the potential customer just wants to really validate your willingness as opposed to actually talking to them.
Oh, interesting.
So
My
not a whole
answer
lot of potential customers actually take us
do
up
the
on
call.
that, but
Ah.
they will ask, and we'll like, sure, here's the list of names, here's the telephone numbers, here's the emails, like we'll send an intro email or whatever, like go for it. And then they either just don't follow up and they just sign and continue, and it's not that much of an issue.
Ah, interesting. So my answer has always tended to be, it's not my client's job to sell my services, right?
Oh,
I've got video testimonials, I've got case studies. Like, go look at them. If that's not enough, peace out, bro.
okay.
So
Well,
both approaches work, right? But again,
yeah.
as I'm the not people person in this
Yeah,
call,
yeah,
right? So my answer is, here's data, shut up.
yeah.
And if data doesn't do it for you, tough, right?
So yeah, I think the thing that our case studies don't do is, well, necessarily is like hit that what was the client experience. So I
Mm,
think because our service is like a chief workflow officer, right? What is that?
mm,
Right? A lot of the questions that prospective leads have is like, what does it mean to collaborate week over week? What is it like to get a prototype that moves from prototype to production? And like, we're in automation AI niche. What do I get? What is the thing? Right? And the point, our point is that there's not a thing, right? You're if you're trying to create tasks in Jira or tickets in Jira, but all the conversations happening in Slack, well, boy, howdy, it would be nice if I could react with an emoji and that would create a ticket in Jira. No new software, right?
right, right.
That experience, I think, is what is driving some of the conversation or desire to have a conversation. Is like, this feels a little different, right? Because they don't have a comparable experience to like parallel with it.
Mm,
So the request to talk to a client is like, well, week over week, what was that like? Now that things have been operating for 6 months, right? Does it do really all the things that you thought it was going to? How often does it break? Why? Like they just don't know what that experience would be like. So we open that door, but it's rare that people actually walk through it.
interesting,
But yeah, yeah, that's
interesting.
fine.
So
Doesn't
the
bother
why
me.
you, yeah, I mean, I get it increasingly rarely, and when I find the why you comes, it's actually more frequently these guys are cheaper, so
Mm,
why you? And then my answer is, do they offer a guarantee? And they go, well, no, and I go, then that's why, right? Because you can spend sure $10,000 with them and more with me, but with them, what happened when you spend your 10 grand, nothing happened? And they go, I'm like, yeah, right. You spend your more with me and nothing happens, which has yet to occur.
hmm
If nothing happens, you get your money back. And they go, there's a why you, right? That's the compelling value prop.
on that note, we get, XYZ firm is cheaper. Well, great. How do they facilitate training and change management?
Hmm. Who? What?
What?
Yeah.
Right. Like they didn't even ask for that yet, right?
Solving the
They
real
asked for
problem,
connect
right?
connect this to this, right? That's all I
Yeah.
want you to do. Well, there's a team of 40 people that use this thing right now.
Hmm.
How, like, are you going to have a webinar? Do you facilitate training? Is it recording? Is it documented? Is it flowcharts? Like, what is the material? What is the thing that they actually learn, observe, and now can enact? And it's, oh yeah, training. Oh yeah, maintenance. Oh, this thing needs to be maintained in the long term. Who's going to own that now?
Yeah.
Hmm.
So that is, as I mentioned, the exceptional client service, right? Solve the real problem, not what they ask for.
Yeah.
Why me? Because I'm smart enough to solve the real problem. I'd also note for you, no other agency in the automation space has their own bespoke software to deliver stuff with, right? Where
Yeah.
you package it up in a bow and say, here you go.
hmm
Everybody else is like, I built some stuff in your Zapier, or maybe in worst yet, in my Zapier,
Yeah.
right? If you want changes made, call me. Maybe I'll answer.
Please do
You've
that.
got
Yeah.
such a better, speaking of client experience, such a better thing, right? Where you're
Yeah.
saying, look, we put in hundreds of man hours of labor to build a software so that you get everything you need delivered in a way that you can manage it. And at that point, that plus the training plus the test, like all this, it's just become there's everybody else working, and then there's X-ray up here. Good for you, right? The why you gets easier when you're more experienced. When you are less experienced, it's yeah, just like my company. I'm young and I'm hungry, and I'm not throwing away my shot.
Yeah.
All right. Um, and then how do you? I guess the last thing to go in real quick is how would you explain like a sentence of like when you work with X-ray, you will get thing because in the end, that's basically the fundamental anchor around which all of your services, all of your client delivery, all of your messaging, everything hangs. How
Mhm.
would you construct a one sentence around X-ray does this for people?
Well, there'd probably be two topics that I'd touch on. One be time and one be confidence. So I would say working with X-ray gives you time back and confidence in the work that you do every day. So it's really all about, you know, designing somebody's day that take advantage of the unique human qualities and decisions that they need to make to be successful in their job. Most often, if you can connect that to like actual company KPIs, wonderful. But the other piece of like the human piece really is not so much the time. It's actually like the confidence and clarity in what I need to do to be successful. It's like because these systems are built around the individual and not the other way around, right? You're not putting individuals around a system, you're putting a system around an individual. Um, you get not only the time back of copying and pasting or doing whatever, asinine thing you have to do, um, but you also get the clarity and the confidence that like I'm doing this the right way. And everyone else who I'm going to train is also going to do it the right way. And it's the right way because it's the easiest way. It's the most data complete way. It's the fastest way. And there's really no other alternative that would be better. Like in no world, now that X-Ray has worked with this company, is it a good idea to just open up a spreadsheet and just like fill out some stuff and then share the spreadsheet with, Karen in accounting. Like nobody's doing that because that is actually more work than the designed workflow, and it's easier. It is the path of least resistance. And that's why adoption happens and why training and maintenance like fits, right? So in a single sentence, it's what does X-Ray do? Well, X-Ray gives you your time back and gives you clarity and confidence in the work you do every day. And that just touches, 1,000 different things, but it's really about those two things: time and confidence and clarity.
And that promise becomes like a touchstone when you work uh, with X-Ray. For crowd tamers, we build $1 million marketing engines guaranteed, right? There's the promise. We guarantee it. What do? We build these engines. And the unique part of this one is specifically $1 million, and that is I've talked to people who like $1 million wouldn't move the needle, right?
Mm-hmm.
We need $10 million. I go, awesome. I'm not your agency. Like, does Trevor, the marketer, know how to grow a company up from 10 million? Yes, I do. Does my team know how to do it? No, right? They're trained
Different
around a different
product.
problem, different product. And for good or for ill, my team is spec'd to do this one thing and do it very well. So when someone says, "Hey, I want to go from 10 million to 30 million," good luck, buddy.
Mm-hmm.
Another agency out there can help you, not me, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's that specific differentiator on size, on guarantee, and that's the promise, right? You get that when you work with us. Just the same for X-Ray. For whatever agency you are building, you who are listening or watching this asynchronously later, right? What's the promise? And then how do you make sure you deliver all of that? The clients benefit because you delivered this thing. The clients wanted this thing. They had a problem around this thing. You can unpack all of this and go, super deep on it. That's probably out of scope of any discussion we're having today. We're already 55 minutes in. I think the takeaways here, right? What people should, if they have an agency or are looking to have an agency, what they should take away. The things I can think of are like the first one is identify your agency's key differentiators, and not just you, the founder, should know. Everybody in your team should know, because that's what you should all steer towards. That's one thing I think that's pretty important. Can you think of one that you think people should take away and call out?
It's got to be to develop a clear and concise, unique promise statement. Something that you're promising, right? Like the $1 million marketing engine is, I think, a fantastically clear and concise way of describing the value that you communicate. And especially as you start to serpentine between all these different markets and niches and focuses and people placed and all the other P's and stuff, it's what does it distill down to in a sentence? And how clearly can you communicate that? I think you have the advantage over X-Ray in that department. It's just
I mean, I'm a copywriter, so
few words,
hopefully,
yeah,
yeah.
a few less words, but um, Yeah, that's really, I think, a fast way of communicating your value, and can quickly touch a lot of the different things that we talked about today. In a single sentence, when someone, you meet at a networking event and says, "Oh, what do you do?"
Yep. And that is when I tell people what I do, some of them go, sit back, not interested, right? Cool. We're not going to try to have a sales conversation now. You've already told me you don't want this. Some of them go, and right, oh, okay, there we go. Let me explain more in depth. But the thing I don't want to be at a networking event, or you meet somebody at the playground with your kids. Not that you have them, but I do. Uh, and then they're like, "What do you do?" And if I say that, and they're like, "Oh, I'm an accountant for Deloitte," I'm like, "Cool. We don't have to talk business. Nothing's going to happen here, right?" Instead, look, your child, that's an ugly looking kid. Oh, it's yours. I'm so sorry. So you know, that's where the conversation goes instead. I think having that sentence, having those unique value props, and communicating them every opportunity you get when it is appropriate. That's my last takeaway. Don't always be pitching. People say always be pitching. They're always hustling. They're trying to sell to the waitress in the restaurant and the guy who washes their tires at the car wash. Like, stop it, right? Send out your unique sentence. That is fine. If people respond with the eyebrows up, you can talk more. If they lean back, nice day, isn't it? There's a sun. Who knew? It's still shining. Thank goodness.
Well, that's pretty much it for today. Don't forget
That's
to
our
like,
show.
subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments.
Smash that like button, Bo.
We've never said that, and we should,
I have.
because it matters, and there's a lot of you watching. So thank you.
Yeah, all
Uh,
all many of you who are watching. Hey, to be fair, over the course of the show, I've seen like 9 people come and go, so there's been some views. But really, at least in my case, the views on this are all on YouTube Shorts after the fact. So
yeah.
ring that bell, smash the like and subscribe. I don't know what Mr. Beast does beyond that. Really good thumbnails, which I also lack. But anyway, hopefully you found this informative. Hopefully the conclusion of something you can apply to your agency. See us in 2 weeks. We'll come back with another episode of Agency Real Talk where we'll talk about, I don't know what. We'll make the show notes up on the day.
Let's do it. Thank you, everybody.
All righty. Take
See you
care,
next
everybody.
time.